Did construction a lot with my dad.
What type of construction is it?
Like handyman, painting,
Got it.
finishing basements, a little bit of everything. Residential though. And then started my own painting company that was just me, and that was interesting. And then got picked up by a larger painting company out of Reston and just did sales for them. And that's where I really learned a lot more about sales, and kind of did that for 4 years or so. Did pretty good and just knew we were having kids, had to do something different because it just got boring, kind of, it was like a conveyor belt, and wanted to do something bigger. Always thought real estate was kind of the next thing. So just jumped in. And
How many years ago was that?
Last May.
Last night. Okay, so you got in when it was still goodish, right?
Everybody was saying it was terrible.
Last May?
I mean, it was like, it was, May
It
was
at
probably
the end.
fine.
I was gonna say it's probably
But then
right
it
at
started,
the end
yeah.
of the good times. That's what we'll put it.
Yeah.
So how's it been then for the last year and a half for you since?
Well, so I went and took my test 2 days after my son was born.
Okay. How many kids do you have now?
3.
3. Okay.
And then one more on the way. We haven't like officially announced that yet, but we're about to.
Okay.
Probably like tomorrow.
Okay.
So we have the twins will be 4 in February, and then Teddy will be 2 in February.
Okay. So you got your license right after he was born, literally.
Well, it took the test, yeah, and then it took however long to actually, get it back. And then I had left my other job a few months prior because I hate studying, and so I knew if I wasn't like full-time studying, then I'd never get around to it. So after that, it took about 7 months before I got my first deal, so it was like getting pretty stressful.
I'm sure
yeah.
was, and that's, yes.
Yeah, it was nuts.
How did you get that first?
So the first one was actually, I started off with my first listing. That one was tough. I mean, all in all, I think it took like 45 days to sell, so not that long, but it felt like forever. I was holding open houses every weekend for that one, and that's where I met my first buyer. He walked in, we hit it off, and then 5 days later, he was under contract on a place, and then closed, I think, in 12 days. So November had 2 closings. That was the first, deals, and then December, I think I had 6 or 7. It's kind of just been nonstop since then.
That was crazy. Okay, so now, you sold his house or sold him a house in 5 days. How's it been since?
It's been nonstop. This year so far, I have 30 closed and a few more pending.
That's not normal, by the way.
No, no. But I'm glad that it picked up. I mean, I'm very competitive. And if there's something in front of me, then I just, keep going.
Yeah.
I kind of figured from hearing from a lot of people that their biggest issue is like lead flow. Mm-hmm. I figured let me solve that first, and then I'll worry about dealing with them after.
Are you doing anything that you feel comfortable sharing? I know if you say you're competitive.
Yeah, no. Well, so when I first started off, there was an agent that you should probably talk with. She's awesome, Chrissy Cruz. She's like one of the top agents at Pearson Smith, and she would just hold these trainings where she would like give everything away. Yeah. And then she'd say, I'm perfectly fine telling you all this because 95% of you aren't going to do it.
I agree with that 100%.
So, yeah. So I do a lot. You're
one of the 5%.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I started off doing open houses like every weekend for months. My wife hated it because, the kids were there and I was gone all weekend. But that had some success with that. Do some paid lead sources, some paid at closing lead sources, a lot of actual agent referrals because I always post whenever under contract or sold, and so other agents see that and reach out and send clients as well. I've had lenders send clients, and then started doing YouTube like 6 months ago, and we've closed 4 from there so far, and I'm working with a few others. Just talking about the local area. So me and another agent, he's kind of like the brains behind the scenes and everything. we just picked different cities close to where I work because I'm in the Shenandoah Valley and Eastern Panhandle in West Virginia. And so we just picked different cities and, kind of go over pros and cons of living there. The one that's actually, I think, brought 3 of those 4 closings was our like reasons why not to move to West Virginia video,
Yes.
which a lot of people,
I
hated.
do that all that
Yeah.
for my clients because they're like, no, I don't want to talk about that. I'm like, you have no idea. It works.
Yeah. That one's almost got 50,000 views or coming up on that. And almost everybody that I talk with that says, I reached out from YouTube, I always ask what video, and they say, actually, it was that one. So that's been interesting. And I think that's pretty much the bulk of it.
That's awesome. So the nice thing is about those YouTube videos are going to keep working for you, right? I always love paid leads myself, but if you're not paying, you're not getting them. So
Yep.
it's like you've got to take that into account. And then I love the fact that you're consistently networking with other professionals, other agents, mortgage loan officers. In terms of like looking into the future, where do you see the real estate agent playing a role in the transaction? Do you think it's going to change at all, or is it going to?
No, are you like alluding to that lawsuit thing with NAR?
No, not
Okay.
really. Just kind of overall. I have heard about it, but no, just
Gotcha.
like overall with AI, with technology, with
I don't think so. It's such an emotional transaction for a lot of people. And so there are people that, buy and sell a lot of houses that aren't agents, but they understand the process and it's not an emotional thing for them whatsoever. So for them, it absolutely makes sense to just cut out the agent, go to an attorney, have them draft things up, because essentially they're being their own agent. But for the majority of people that are buying a house to live in or selling their childhood home, or the house they raise their kids in, it's very emotional. And so I think having that, face-to-face connection and somebody to advocate for you, I don't think that's going to go away.
yeah. No, that's good because I know there's. Okay, right now, for you things are going well. For a lot of agents, they're not. And I think, which I might be 100% wrong, it's because the interest rates have got people kind of not wanting to, move out of their interest rate. Obviously, inventory, economy, people not knowing what's really going to happen. When do you think, if you think this at all, that's going to shift or change? Get out your little
Yeah, crystal ball.
crystal
Yeah.
ball.
I have no idea. What I've been banking on is I heard someone say, I don't even know if this stat is true or not, but it gave me motivation, so it works. They said that 3 out of every 100 people have to move at any given point. So the interest rates, if they have a bunch of equity and their interest rate is low, that's not going to matter because they have to move. And so it's getting in front of those people.
Those 3.
Yeah, and if you're 3 out of 100, if you're in a city with 200,000, then that's a lot of people.
Good odds.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I think there's a lot of real estate agents, and there's a lot that I think get into it thinking it's an easy thing, that have no sales experience, no marketing experience, and they just think they can just jump in and it's going to be easy. If I didn't have the experience that I had, where I was meeting with people every single day, and just trying to find out what their pain points were, what they cared about, and seeing if what we provided was a good solution for them. And so those conversations come kind of naturally, and so it kind of just makes it easy for me when meeting with people to build that rapport, and then we continue working with each other. Whereas a lot of people, they may meet with someone once and then kind of fumble a little bit, and then the person's going on and working with someone else. So
What did you want to do when you were a little kid?
I think the first thing that I wanted to do was be a firefighter.
Why?
I just thought it was cool. I liked fire. I liked seeing them running into the building and, carrying people out, being the hero. And yeah,
Do you feel like you kind of get to do that now as an agent?
not really. I think it's a little different. It's nice knowing that, I'm helping make something that's huge for a lot of people go smoothly. and then, also being very competitive. Like I genuinely want, if I'm on the buy side, to get the best deal for my clients, and really negotiate hard for them. And then if I'm on the listing side, then getting the most money for my clients. And so, whenever I'm able to, they say we're happy with this, and then I get this, it's always nice
Got
being
a
able to deliver
surprise
that
for you.
news.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I had one last month where, they'd been putting in offers and not getting them because it was, what they wanted, everybody wants out in like Frederick County. And so it was kind of tough. And then there was one that had been sitting for a little while and they loved it. He said, if we can just get, 5,000 seller credit for $5,000 back, we're happy. And I called the listing agent, pushed for 12,000, and she came back and said, okay, yeah, they'll do 12,000. So I called him up and was like, hey man, sorry, we weren't able to get the five. And he was like, I was like, we got you 12. And so,
Wow.
they were just ecstatic about
I'm
that.
excited about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Very cool. All right. So how does your wife feel now that and kids feel like, because that's 7 months is a nice long lead time. Like, does she back you up?
Yeah, she's been very supportive the whole time.
Awesome.
And I think that's been huge because, 7 months is a long time. And I was working rentals, which, are difficult, because it's driving around everywhere. And then it's kind of tough to, support a family if you're just working rentals. But, she believed me the whole time. And when it finally picked up, then time became more of an issue because, I look at it like I don't want to be the bottleneck. And a lot of clients that I worked with said that they were previously working with someone else, but they just kept dropping the ball to the point where they moved on. And so for me, I never want to be the one that everybody else is waiting on. And so, I try to answer the phone quickly. If I know there's something in front of me, then that's what I'm focusing on. And so that kind of made things tough, with the amount of time spent away from home. And so I brought on some support. I have two transaction coordinators that I work with that's been a game changer. I had an assistant and I'm trying to find someone else, but now that it's wintertime, I'm kind of taking that part slow. And I'm trying to just build up like a small team around me so that way I can have more time with the family, especially since, number 4 is coming in April.
Are you like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited? Are you like, oh my gosh, I've got like a lot more responsibility on me now?
Like
How do you
with,
process that with number 4 coming on? Joining the team.
yeah, well, we've already got our hands full, so I keep
It's
hearing
just
that,
not,
yeah,
yeah.
and they're pretty close in age. So, starting with twins, and they came
Oh, that's
almost
right.
2 months early. So they were born at 31 weeks. They were in the NICU for a month and a half.
It's good training.
Yeah, theirs was tough. When they came home, they both would wake up every hour on the hour, and
At least is
so
it the same hour or they rotate?
same hour.
Okay, good.
Yeah, thankfully. So having that as a first experience,
Yeah.
number 3, Teddy, felt super easy for the most part, and I feel like number 4 is going to be pretty easy too, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, kids are such a blessing, but I know when you're an entrepreneur and you already feel time starved, it is always a difficult thing to try to balance. So,
Yeah.
in terms of looking into the future, you're growing your team right now. How do you make sure that you've got right fit people on your team? Because you are I don't know, not necessarily a hustler, because someone's kind of got a derogatory team. I like the word hustler, but very competitive, willing to do whatever it takes. Do you look for that same thing in your team members, or how do you assess a good fit for you?
So I have to really be impressed. So the way I found the transaction coordinator I work with now is this was before I had any help. And at that time I had 6 deals going on at one time. And like a handful of buyers I was working with as well. So I was like, going nuts. And it was helpful because she was on the other side of the transaction and she would ping me every day asking for things. But I would take forever to get back to her, and just the consistent follow up and just her overall demeanor she really impressed me. So I reached out to the listing agent afterwards and was like, hey, is she working with other people? And she's like, funny you say that. She's actually just asked me for a referral for, someone else to work with. So we talked. She said she doesn't usually work with agents this fresh into it, but
She would make an exception for you.
yep. Because that's what I was like. I have 5 going on right now. You can, take all
Yeah.
or for it, I guess. And so she, like, basically, long story short, what I look for is someone that doesn't need a whole lot of training. I want to find someone that is already impressive because from working for myself at the painting company and trying to scale that, I learned that training and management is not one of it's not my strengths at all, like at all. So it makes it tough to find people because anybody that's already that good usually doesn't need to make a switch. So now I'm keeping an eye out for either like a really good, like type A organized, like admin help, or, potentially thinking of like partnering up with someone that has that kind of demeanor.
Yeah.
So,
That's smart. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are like that. They don't want to manage. They're in it because they love the vision and the creation and the building.
mm-hmm,
And not everybody can build people.
mm-hmm,
That's like its own special skill set. So then, we look for people that are pretty much ready to go straight out,
mm-hmm,
right when they join. But then, like you said, a lot of times they're not seeking opportunities. So you really have to have either a nice compensation or a big vision to get them to
mm-hmm.
want to join.
Yeah. And I think with real estate, there's like, it's definitely not 9 to 5. You have to really care because, I mean, there's plenty of times where, you could really hurt a transaction by not answering, by not, really staying in the weeds with it and keeping a hand on it. And a lot of people fumble just because they're like, okay, this is good now. Let me focus on something else.
Yeah.
And so for me, I have to know somebody's going to genuinely care and, do what they got to do.
Yeah. All right. So, in terms of before we wrap it up here, do you have any crazy stories or anything that you don't have to like name names, obviously, but more of like, I learned so much from this experience?
Well, the most recent one, it's not really crazy, but starting off, whenever I would see agents list a house and then when it's sold, if it sold for significantly less, I'd always be like, man, why would they, go in and overprice it? Or, it would always be thinking negatively of the agent, at least for that, transaction. And recently I got my biggest listing yet. And the seller was insisting on listing significantly higher than, any comp supported. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to just tell them no and find someone else to do it. So it closed Monday for significantly less than listed. And so it was just realizing that, at the end of the day, the client steers the ship, they make the decisions and, I can try and teach and, influence the way that goes, but there's only so much that I can actually do. So it gave me a little more empathy for other agents that, maybe I would have thought negatively of.
It's funny, I actually was talking to an agent a couple weeks ago, and that's something that I had said. I said, oh, yeah, or like when the agent overprices a house, and he actually said, hang on a second, wait. A lot of times, the reason why that's overpriced is because the client insists on it. We guide them, we show them the comps, we make our suggestions, but at the end of the day, like, so as easy it is to reflect poorly on the agent, unfortunately, we probably have said our piece and said it's too much.
Yep. Yep.
So, yeah.
And then one last wild one that was a few months ago. So, like, whenever I have a buyer, like, I may Google the house to see if anything pops up, but it's nothing in depth that I'm like researching every house that they get under contract. And I don't know of many agents that do that anyways. And so I had done that with this house, just put it in Google, didn't see anything. And then when we went there and looked at it, there was this like, kind of looked like a shrine people put up if you buried a pet, you know, like just a little thing in the driveway. And I asked the agent about it. I was like, oh, did like the dog die or something? What's this about? And he's like, oh, I don't know. You know, I'm not sure what that's about. A day before closing, the guy talks with his sister-in-law, and she like really looks into the house. And then I guess on like the second page of Google, it showed that there had just been like a double homicide in the home like the previous month. And so the listing agent was definitely
Had to have
aware.
known
Yeah,
that.
definitely
Yeah.
aware that that's what that was about. And so at one point, you know, he was like, I don't know, I may want to pull out of this. You know, it's ridiculous he didn't tell me, even though Virginia, you don't have to.
Yeah.
But he ended up buying it, is happy with it. But it was just one of those, like, that's not what I expected you to tell me when he called me the day before
So it
closing.
wasn't there was nobody buried there. It was
No,
more
no,
of
no.
just like a remembrance type thing. You would think that they could have taken that with them.
Mm-hmm.
Just to help.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh. That is a crazy story.
Everything else has been pretty smooth.
You know what's interesting about you before we wrap it up is you're a very not unemotional, but very composed. Happy, sad story. You can't really tell. You're very, but that's a really good thing when you're working with emotional situations,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like being able to keep your composure and not
Yeah.
react.
It's funny. I've heard that a few times, and I think, like I was telling my wife actually, I kind of understand why some agents may come off as very blunt, and I think it's because after, you know, for some people this is like a one-time thing in their life, and so every little, you know, speed bump is this massive thing. Whereas, you know, if you do a decent amount of transactions, like yes, every deal is different, but a lot of things, you know.
You know it's going to be okay. Don't worry about it. No need to get emotional.
Yep. And so in the beginning, I would definitely get, you know, crazy worked up if, you know, something popped up and seemed like it was going to kill the deal, and just, you know, go nuts trying to figure it out. Whereas now it's like, nope, we're going to, you know, be able to solve this. Or if it's not something that could be solved, then we're going to have to, you know, do something else.
And that's what your client needs.
Mm-hmm.
They need the even keel.
No beating around the
Chill.
bush. You know,
That's
I always
right.
tell people,
Direct.
like,
Yeah.
you know, I ask for permission to be just, you know, bluntly honest with them with what's going on. And then also, you know, I like to tell people, I kind of like to tell them how I work beforehand, because I know sometimes, like, I can maybe not be blunt, but, you know, just say it how it is. And so I just like to let people know, like, hey, I want to move at whatever speed you want to move at. If you tell me when we meet that you're looking to move in a month, then I'm going to go at that pace. If at any point you change your mind, please let me know, because other people have then felt like I'm trying to push them into a home where I'm just going off of what you told me, you know.
We've got 2 weeks to get you into this house. We need to move.
Yeah, when they're thinking like, oh, actually now I've got 4 months.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's awesome. Thank you so much for being a guest here on the Alaman Show. It was great learning a little bit about you. Congratulations on the upcoming 4th member of the team.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just thanks for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure.